Go. I have started the recording. This is the lecture and guided practice for Design 301. It's Thursday, June 17th, and we've really covered all the topics, and you have all of the videos on how to do each command. So I thought what we would do, let me make this a little bit bigger for you so that you can see it. There we go. Thought what we would do is we would do the submittal tips and options again, just to go over it, to be very clear of what's required and what's extra, and talk about the review, and we'll review and demo any edit commands that you might need. And then we'll just do some Q&A. I brought down a 3D printer that we'll talk about in more detail on the highlights class. So there we go. So let's take a look at it. Here I am in, well, that's next week's. Hold on a sec. Let's see if I can find this week's. I'll just come down here to our weekly class submittal templates, and I'll go find my work. Here's my work for week 2. I don't know what your file system is, but I've got my weekly templates, and then I make a copy of it to have my work. And I throw a lot of stuff in here. Right now I haven't done that all the way, but this will be your week 2, which is edit commands. And now I think everybody did a nice job of putting the visualizations in. This week it is just editing commands, so you'll have one set of things in here. You've got your schedule that maybe you worked, and you've got your participation self-certification, and of course you make a video of yourself explaining that. And that's actually a great tool to learn how to do. You're gonna have to be doing that at some point in your career, either getting work or reporting on the work that you've done. So let's take a look and see, as an example, on plate 1, which was the mostly copy and trim command. What you see here would be sufficient. Now, this one is not correct. Remember, I just kind of made something up so that I've had people just copy and paste the work, and when I ask for their AutoCAD, it doesn't look the same or match. So I usually try to make some sort of weird mistake thing in here, just to take the desire away to do it. But this is fine. This is full credit if this were drawn right. This does it. This shows that you can do copy and trim. But as an explanation, you might want to show that you came from something looking like this, and then you use the trim commands to do this. And you could put a description down here or not. Okay? You'll also notice that there are a few ways that you can do layout work. So if you've done graphical work, I'm not very good at graphics, but the golden ratio is really important. So if you've got something that takes up 2/3, 1/3, that is something that our eyes often like. Our eyes often like 2/3, 1/3. And so if this was twice as big as this easily, then you've got a nice one. Another one is a 5/3/1, or cutting this one into thirds also. If you have this one cut into thirds, that's another good way to do it. So there are ways to do this. This is just plopping it right in the middle. I only have one thing. But as soon as you've got multiples, you start looking at some good design concepts, which is your primary thing that you're going to want to show. Takes up about 2/3 of the screen. You could center it, and arrange things around it. Something like that, and then maybe another one over here. So there's a couple of ways. So as an example, if I were to duplicate this one, I could, instead of doing it like this, I could leave this one here, maybe a little bit bigger. Try to get it centered. And get this set over here. And again, this is about, believe it or not, this is about half scale of this. Okay? So half scale is a quarter size, right? Because it's in 2 dimensions. So there you could have that, and then you could do the same thing on this one. And try to get those down to about the same size. So now I've got something, and I could, you know, I don't want to do too much to make this one weird. Always try to do your change in sides from the corner so you keep the aspect ratio. But I could crop this one in just a little bit so that it's a little bit closer in shape to the other one. Okay, so those are just some of the things that you can do if you feel like it, right? And this would say to make this would be my first step. This could be my second step. You can do annotations if you want. This is fine. Absolutely fine. You should know also that you can crop these if you think it makes it look better. Now, in this case, I don't think it does because I've got sharp corners here and I have sharp corners here. So personally, I would tend not to do that. But if you want to, you can get a little bit of a, if you go to your format options, you can put a drop shadow on it. And you can see now that it's got a little bit of a shadow around it. You can also do some recoloring if you need to. I don't think we want to on this one. I thought I could adjust the transparency, but that's of the shadow. But don't get too crazy. Let's see what it looks like when I download it as a PDF. I'm not sure the drop shadow comes out. Let's take a look and see. So I'm on slide number 2. Oh, it did. That's pretty good. So the drop shadow showed up. Google Slides used to not, a lot of the stuff didn't work when it did a print. So that's kind of cool. So the drop shadow looks okay, as well does if you want to maybe put a little bit of a line around it. Even get a little bit. I don't like the different color, but you can play with those. There are times when that's useful if you want to color key something. Okay, so those are some just tips. You want to make this as professional as you can. Also remember to get these to show up really well when you're in AutoCAD. Like if I took the snip right now, it wouldn't look very good because these lines are pretty small and light. So I want to turn on my line weights and adjust them to be pretty heavy. So now all of a sudden you can see I've got a really nice heavy line versus that. So when I take the snip, I can see it better. The reason those turn on and off is sometimes you do get really thick lines and they kind of meld together with other things and it makes it hard to see what you're doing. So that's why that's on there. So there's another little tip that you should be familiar with. So those are some of the tips. Yeah, Steven, do you have a question or a comment?
Yeah,
on that?
when you go to the layout tab, is there a way to make your lines bolder on that layout as well? Like you turned on the bolder lines on the model tab, but if you go to layout 1 or 2, mine always show up very faint.
Yes. Let me think about that. You're going to learn about that next week, and that's with the layer control. So let me just do this for you. To do that, if everything's on one layer, you can go to your layers and see how the line weight is set for default.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually make it heavy duty.
Oh, okay.
Here.
Because I found the screenshots I like better coming from the layout tab, but then they're not dark enough.
Right. And that should darken it up. That should show. Those may not show until you plot. So here's the other way: is File. When you do a print preview. So I like to go to like an Adobe print preview. It really helps show them too. So that's one of the things you can do to get them a little bit more bold. There's a lot. I'm telling you, there's a lot of playing around to get your presentation to look pretty well. Let's go to ACAD CTB as displayed. Normal should be fine. Plot with plot styles, letter. And then apply it to the layout. And let's just see what happens when I do my plot really quick. So you see how when you plot, the line weights show up also. So,
all right.
And that's something we're going to learn next week too. So you're just ahead of the game. It's like generally I'll work from the model because I make my model white anyway. And when I turn it on, I can really see them. Like I just made those hecka thick, right? And so now I can probably adjust them back down here to a more moderate one. So this really works in here. That was a good question. There's some good stuff behind that. Okay, so that, and then this is talking, this is just extra, and tell you the truth, too much stuff can get in the way. Personally, this is about the most I would put on there. This one I think is getting a little too much, and this circle doesn't really help, but I just wanted to show you some options that are there. Now, when we get down to here, this one really does show everything that you need for these. It shows front right top, which is what's asked for right here. Front right top. So that all shows it very well, and showing the grid on the background makes it easy to see that things line up. So this one is just fine. This one is just a little bit better so that you can sort of start getting the idea of where on a standard drawing things go. I did want to point out that I see this a lot. I see images sitting on top of the edges, and so I like to have a bleed. Now on this one, since I've got like one column here, I think what I would do is crop this. Now the crop tool is kind of hard. If I get on the little blue thing, it squeezes the whole thing down. That is not what I want. See the little blue tick? You got to get below the blue tick, hold the mouse down, and pull it in. Now I've got it. And if I can get these to adjust, and I'm holding the shift key down while I get a bunch of these, that looks pretty even. Okay. Now this one, see how I've got like just one column here and I've got 1.5 here. So these are just some of those things that you can do that take a little bit nice extra stuff. Okay, so now this one, this is really the most that I think that you should need to see. However, it is maybe nice to see this. I've got it up there, but if you get a cleaner view, you can put it here. That's okay. I think that this one does fine. That one is really kind of cool, though. And that one is really super cool. Totally not needed. Totally not needed. And like I said, to get this one, you have to draw a solid, then explode it, then move these apart. It's kind of like, okay, I get, wow. And then you can move on with these ones. So this one's really cool, but totally unnecessary. You might want to do it later on. Okay. Any questions or other comments about how to work with the Google Slides? Okay. Then let's just go over again really quick.
I was going to say that the of the 12 or so hours I did last week, I think 10 of it was actually figuring this stuff out.
Yeah. Well, and that's true. And that's why the first week is pretty light. You're going to see that next week, oh my gosh, there's a lot of plates. You're going to see that there's a lot more drawing to do. You're going to have to make a drawing and do some measurements and set all this stuff up. And then you've got 1 drawing, 2 drawings, 3 drawings, 4 drawings, 5 drawings, and then these. So you've got, and some of these drawings are a little bit more work. Still not a lot. We'll get week 4 is where I really hammer you, by the way. Week 4 is going to be a lot of work. And then 5 and 6 are into stuff that you like. But yeah, and that's one of the things about this class. This is an introduction to design technology class, not just an intro to CAD. And these are all tools that designers use to talk to each other. And so, man, that's pretty, but now that you've got it, hopefully they go pretty quick. I'd like the school to give 1 or 2 hour classes in these things at the beginning of the semester. They haven't gotten themselves around to doing that yet. Okay. So let's take a look and see, just to show what they are again. We've got the move command that actually moves an object. Right? You can see where it was, and now you can see where it is. And what you do in reality is you move from a point to a point. So you take a point and put it somewhere. That's really what you do. Okay? And the reason this is on there, by the way, still, is that was the flat piece I made it out of. That's why it's still showing. So, Stephen, that's one of the things to know, that when you do a press pull, it leaves the boundary there so you can do more stuff with it. Okay, and so here's the copy command. And this works the same way. And if you have your ortho on, of course, it's easier. And you can just type a distance, 16 inches, 32 inches, 48 inches. And since that pattern was regular, I could have done the same thing with the array command. Now I've got it as an array command. Bing, 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 bing. Isn't that cool? What you can do. You can really do some nice work with that.
Now, back on the copy command, is that control,
Just type C.
Okay. And that's based on where your cursor is at that moment then.
So then here, let me go back. Bing, bing.
Because I was just trying to do it and I wanted to move it over a ½ inch, but it moved it over a ½ inch from the left side of the drawing rather than the right side.
Well, what it does is if I say move it 1/2 inch, it's going to move that point that I start at, click 1/2 inch.
Okay.
So what happens now is that point moved 1/2 inch. Okay.
So if
it didn't make a 1/2 inch gap, it moved it 1/2 inch.
Gotcha. If I want a 4-inch square moved over a ½ inch and copied, then I need to move it 4.5.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And that because my brain is so full of numbers and this and that. The other thing is I don't usually do that. That's why I'll usually draw something the length I want to go. And then it's just like, oh, it's obvious. And that was the move command. Sorry. Copy. And then I can just keep going too, because I've got my offset distance that I'm copying along with it. So that's kind of a cool way that you can, but we all, there are numbers people and then there are visual people. And I'm a little bit of both. I like numbers. I do things better with numbers. I'm trained as an engineer. I am an engineer. But I find that I make fewer mistakes if I do it visually, where I type it once. I'm a bad typer. Okay, I'm a pretty good typer, but gosh, I make mistakes. But yes, so now you can see the distance if I go DIST between this corner and this corner is more than just this length. Okay. So that's the copy command. That was a good one. Move. The trim command, one thing that some people do have a problem with. See how I got 3 separate lines here? If I do the trim command, I can't trim this thing because trim means take away an overlapping part. And there's nothing that overlaps. They meet perfectly. There's nothing to trim. So if I needed to get rid of that, I have to do delete. Whereas if I've got something that looks like this, now I can trim what's in between because it actually crosses the line. So it has to actually cross a line to be able to trim. Okay, so those are some cool things that you can that you can think about. The rotate command, we didn't really use much in this one. We'll use it later on. But again, you select an object, find a point, and then rotate it around. And you can type C, and it leaves your old one where it was. So that's kind of cool.
And how useful would that be? I just can't picture why I would do that other than artwork.
So let me do that. Rotate this line. Midpoint with a copy. 90 degrees. It's used a lot when you're trying. I don't use it a lot, but when I've got something and I just need a perpendicular copy of it, it makes it really quick.
I see.
So really, I use it mostly for symbols, or if I know in my design that I need this function to happen, it's a good way. I mean, some people just go, well, forget it. I'm just going to do a polar array and I'll just do 2 of them, right? It's really polar array with 2. So that's where that one is somewhat used. A lot of people also use it as when it's not going to be an even array, like you're going to go 0, 5, 10, 20, 40, 60, 90. Then that copy rotate is really good. But it does. It's got its own very precise little thing to do. Let's see if they're those were the main ones that we're talking about. Welcome in, Noor. Good to see you. I am doing a recording, so you won't have missed anything. Do you guys have any other questions on the basic ones that we did? We didn't really do array, but we could have done it. We really worked copy, move, trim. Those were the primary ones. We did a little bit of fillet, and you could have done chamfer. You'll get more chance to do those later on. For those of you who've just come on, I've got my 3D printer up and running down here. I've been running it up in another room, but I thought I'd bring it down here so we can look at it and do some demos. I need to get my phone. For some reason down here, my phone is supposed to screencast, and it's not. So I got to bring a third camera down, a little GoPro or something. I got to bring it down, or get my webcam. Get my webcam cord a little bit longer so I can get over there and see it for you. But that's what's running over there. I'm actually making some brackets. Okay. Any other questions on these, on how they work or what to do? If not, I'll talk a little bit more about, give you a preview of what next week is going to be.
I have one quick question.
Yeah.
Differences between line and polyline. I end up using polyline most of the time.
Yeah. There's the difference between line and polyline is polyline is far more powerful, but you have to know that if you want to do something to just one segment, you have to explode it. So a line is just that, and it's got all sorts of properties to it. There's line types and line weights and thicknesses and things like that, and start and end, and you can set all those. A polyline is literally a group of lines that act as one.
Okay.
So now I've got Polyline. And there are some really cool things you can do with polylines because you can edit them. There are a special set of tools. So it's really just, so now look, I can do a spline or a fit. I can set the width.
So it's basically the line is drawing a line segment, and the other one we're drawing the shape. I mean, essentially, you're
Yeah.
when you click on it, you're selecting the entire thing you drew.
Yep. And what's nice is you can move individual vertices.
Okay.
So Polyline is just a more complex, powerful way of treating lines. Now the problem is, and let me decurve. Okay. Problem is, if I want to do something just to this, then I have to explode it.
I see.
But really, polylines are truly, truly, truly useful. they're just more things to do. Not only that, for you, I'm going to show you something here. There's a 3D polyline. Polyline, this command only works on one plane. So that's a bummer. But I could make a 3D polyline. Now that thing truly exists in the 3 dimensions, right?
Oh, wow.
And that's really nice because if I've got something like a handrail to make or a special shape, I can sweep this along that. Now I've got.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's pretty nice. So the 3D polyline is even more rigorous. I don't use that much in mechanical design, but when I'm doing architectural design or landscape design, and I need to have a, circular coil. Well, you can make a coil that way too. Check this out. Now I'll make a coil. So now I can make a spring. I can actually model a spring. And that's pretty cool because you have all the information to actually make that thing. And so, this is really nice for landscape, for interior design. You can use some for mechanical. Now in 3D printing, you need to do this to put threads on because, in milling, there's no sense, or lathe work, there's no sense to actually making the model. You just tell what tool to use, what depth to go, and what pitch to run. And there's no need to actually model it. And so when you model it, it doesn't really make it. But now that people 3D print, you do need it. So there's just some cool. Those are kind of like extra versions of drawing a line or drawing a circle. That was really just a circle at the bottom, a circle at the top, and you give it some information on how it twists. So these are just fun, cool things. I like to do this. It's kind of neato. They're cool to do. So there. Did that make sense, though? The difference
Yeah.
between line and polyline is that it's treating this as one object. So what you do to any one piece of it, you do to another piece. Okay. One of the main ways that we do this is I make a polyline and I'm going to do the width command, and I'll start at 0 and I'll end at 2. And I can draw arrows. That's how you draw. That's one of the typical ways of drawing an arrow when you need one. Now, next week we're going to start talking about standards, and part of that is going to be annotations. How do you use these text tools and multi-leader tools and dimension tools? A little bit. You use we'll go into just this is an introductory class, so we just barely touch on it. But we're going to go over those. We're going to go over these things called layers and how to set up layers so that you can give different lines different properties. We're going to talk about line types. So far, we've just drawn lines, but there are hidden lines and center lines and dashed lines and phantom lines and things like that. So this is what we're going to go over next week. First, you're going to find out that if you set your drawing up as mechanical, architectural, or civil, AutoCAD talks to you differently. And that's in your units. You're just going to draw a line and let AutoCAD talk to you differently. In this class, we do mostly mechanical, some architectural, and a little bit of civil. So you have to know what the effects of are your units. This is that layer thing I was talking about. And I'm gonna show you how to make a template with all your layers in it. And then when you start a new drawing, you can grab just the layers that you want to use. And layers are ways of grouping things so that you can see them or not see them, or print them or not print them, or fix them so that people can't change them. You can group things easily and treat them all the same. And so you can imagine that the outline is the geometry. There are things that are hidden inside it. There are text and there are dimensions. So you would want to be able to see or communicate those and work with those all as a group. Make them all the same color for dimensions, make them all the same line weight and things like that. So we're going to have an opportunity to do that. There's also, just like all the other programs, you can set your text work. You can left justify, middle, center, right, set the height, what standard you want. City Blueprint is City BP, and you can even set the rotation on the page. So I have a very simple exercise for you to do, just so that you know how to do that. And then dimensions also look different depending on what you do. So mechanical has many, many styles, and architectural. And I didn't put civil on here. I really should put civil on also. But I just stuck with these two to show that the same line can have dimensions that look significantly different. And so you're just going to have an opportunity to show that. And then you're going to put it into practice. you're just going to draw some stuff with different layers, and it's going to look all funny, but it's going to show that you can do these things. Here's another just weird shape. You would never make a drawing like this, but it's showing control over these things. Here's one that's showing different types of drawings. This would be a detailed drawing. These are the details of the part. And I'm going to, this is not quite right. That should say diameter 3/4. And so these are some details that turn into an assembly. And this is the easiest detail in assembly that we can figure out how to give you. So you just start talking about industry standards of the types of drawings. Different types of drawings have different standards to them. And then we're going to have a title block for you to make that you'll use from then on out. And then the final one is you're supposed to be able to start being able to discern what a good industry standard drawing looks like. And so I'm just going to let you go online and find some and just annotate them. Yes, this is a dimension standard. This is a good text standard. This is another standard. This is and you'll pull some good drawings to show somebody that you're starting to understand what a good drawing looks like. There we go. That's the basis of it. And then here are your drawing plates. And I've got additional practice. Next week, this week we kind of talked about mechanical stuff in production. This week we're going to start talking about architectural. So here are some drawings, and you actually have the ability to draw these now. There's heavy lines, there's light lines, there's curves and arrays. This is mostly drawn with rectangles. This is mostly rectangles. This is a hatch. This is a hatch. This is a hatch. This is a hatch. And it's mostly just rectangles. So, and then there's some annotations. And this will start getting, and this is extra work. Do I have the same one in twice? Darn it all. And then these are many different line types. And if you can reproduce this, this is really, really good work. There's just another architecture. I'm missing a drawing here. Darn it. I need to have, I got the same drawing in here twice for this. Oh, no, that's right. This is grade clearance. And this is window door head. Notice how they're almost the same? So if you drew this and all of this, probably take you 15 minutes to turn it into that. And these are taken from the company Hardy Plank that makes this siding. And of course, they want their siding to be installed correctly so that it's a successful build. So this is an installation detail for how do you do it so that it doesn't leak. So like here's the window frame, and here's some flashing so that as the water drips down the outside, there's some flashing. And then as it drips off, it hits this board. There's some caulking, and then the Hardy Planker works. So that's typically how you do these. And so you want your contractor to know simple flashing, caulking. And then just bank, lay it in there, lay it in there, lay it in there, lay it in there, and getting it going. Okay, so the detail is really about the hardy planking, but this other stuff is just showing a typical wall. A typical wall. Okay, but these are cool. I mean, you go, oh, you know, how hard can it be to build a house? It can be hard. It can really, really be hard. Okay, so that's what's coming up for next week. We're going to talk about industry standards. Okay, and you're going to start applying some of those basic drawing tools that you've done and start practicing some basic industry standards. Cool? Okay, there we go. So for this afternoon, there's really no new work. I'm just gonna zoom in on this thing, and I'm gonna show you how to take a 3D model from AutoCAD, do what they call slice it. Of course, I'm using an old slicer. Newer slicers have other features, but you'll get the idea. Slice it, import it into the printer software, and make a part. I'm actually making 2 parts right now, if you can see what's going on over there. I don't know how to zoom that camera. I'll bet you there's a way to zoom it. So that's what this afternoon is. This afternoon is taking a 3D model and how do you work in it. And the idea is that these drawings are great. Flat drawings are awesome. Detailed drawings are awesome. But machine tools actually build many of the parts. And I don't know how many of you saw the thing. Somebody just 3D printed the walls to a house. They have some very good concrete and plasticine mix now. To tell you the truth, it's ugly. They say, oh yeah, we built the house in 2 days. No, you didn't. You did what was normally called framing in 2 days. And a good framer could have done that in a day and a half. But it sounds very good. It sounds very, very good. But machine tools do make more and more and more. Professor Nokow, who is one of our professors, is the BIM manager for Clark Pacific. And they are doing more and more and more site manufactured concrete work, everything. And so this ability to get a machine to read your drawing and then massage that drawing in such a way that the machine can make it is key to productivity. And I don't care whether that's interior design, landscape, mechanical, or architectural, or even civil. One of our former students, actually, his company now where he works, just bought a 24-foot by 12-foot 3D printer with a 2-inch nozzle because they create forms for bridge work. And rather than just having, just flat plywood forms, they're using artistic forms now. And they're big and they're nice and they can make nice looking bridge work and bridge footings. R&R Construction is the company, engineering. And so it's cool. Yeah, even civil engineers are using this. Another example is if you do a 3D scan with a drone, it turns into a point cloud. You put that into Revit and you do your work and you export that. And now Caterpillar Tractor will read that export and drive the tractor until that profile is met. The poor person inside really has nothing to do anymore except stop the thing if it goes haywire. They're basically there as an emergency stop button. So getting your information to a machine tool is critical, and that's sort of what we'll do in the highlights one. this afternoon if you are interested. Cool. Okay, any last minute comments before I turn, or questions before I turn off the recording? Okay, then that will do it, and I'll see you at 1 o'clock if you're available. I will record because we will be doing some interesting new stuff, although it's not technically part of the intro to CAD. We'll see you.